Welcome to another episode of Unexpected Perspectives with myself, Mark Segelov. And today I'm very pleased to have with me three special guests, Sophie, Jenny and Pal. So, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks.
So Sophie and Jenny are the co-founders and directors of Cyber Women Groups CIC. And Pal is also a director and founder of Spirit UK, an IT MSP. Okay, thank you all for joining me today.
Oh, thanks for having
Thank you
us.
for having us.
Thank you.
So this episode is about entrepreneurship, and in particular entrepreneurship in technology. So without further ado, I'm going to ask my first question over to Sophie and Jenny. For both of you, tell us about what it means to be an entrepreneur and how you came about embarking on that journey yourself.
Of course.
Yeah, so I think for us, being an entrepreneur means that we have more freedom to do more stuff in our sector. Like, we saw an issue and we thought, okay, how can we help? And that kind of gives us a pathway to help, I think, and give support.
Absolutely. So our venture is around, Jenny and I met in university, and we started the CIC on the basis that we ran a diversity initiative called Cyber Women at Warwick. And we've now scaled it up into a non-profit organisation that supports women and students in the UK enter and stay in cybersecurity as well. So we're really just creating a community of like-minded people who can be supported, and they put on events and do amazing things. I think one very unique thing about us is the fact our brand sits between both of us. So as entrepreneurs, we've done this journey together, and starting quite young as well. It's been
a real
quite
challenge. Yeah, we've been very lucky to be supported by each other as we faced a lot of challenges in becoming new entrepreneurs. And we started and we just graduated from university, so we knew nothing other than our degree. And we were like, how do we start a business? Okay, we'll help each other, which is really, really helpful.
I'm really keen to understand, what was that spark that just said, you know what, we're going to do it? What was that kind of like?
A bottle of wine.
No, the honest one. I think we both knew from setting up the initiative, we saw a niche, and we knew there was space for it in the community. We knew that we were capable of running such an initiative because it had done so well.
Yeah, we were so passionate as well. Yes. We saw so many students across the UK that were doing so many incredible things and not being supported and not being recognised, that we were like, okay, we have a way to do this. Can we do it well? And can we support those students that are across the UK?
So I think we said, well, unless we try it, we're not going to know.
Yeah.
So really, that is what really pushed us to do it, and here we are today, and it's not collapsed yet, so that's all good.
If anything, it keeps getting bigger, which is so good.
That's often usually the purpose of an entrepreneurial journey.
Absolutely.
But maybe just briefly over to Pal.
Awesome. Your story's amazing. So my story sort of starts a little bit earlier, back in the 90s, the 1990s, not the 1890s.
Thank you for clarifying.
Just to be honest, to be sure. So there was a group of us who wanted to get into IT, and at the time we weren't really that good at it, and I'd just done a computer studies degree, and a few of us banded together and decided to try and figure this thing out. So we ended up meeting every Saturday or Sunday and dismantling all these computers and things and trying to put them all back together again. And we found that just by having that camaraderie, getting together and doing stuff, we were able to learn a lot. So we discovered a few fundamental concepts and started to apply them, and then just got better and better at it. And we formed a training group called the IT Society a while ago, and that morphed into, why don't we all go into business together? And so in the mid-90s, we started a limited company, and we mainly did contracts and stuff, but we shared skills. It was a pay-it-forward type idea behind it, where one person would learn something and think, right, let's train everybody else, let's get them all up to speed on the same thing, which worked out extremely well. And it was all different aspects of IT at the time, which obviously IT's evolved and moved, and there's so many different, there's a much wider spectrum now of different things you can get involved with. And then that continued, and in 2009 I started another company which was primarily focused on the third sector. I saw that, I think you've got to have a really big why, and for me that spark that you talked about earlier on was no one else is really focusing on this, and there's all these third sector organisations, charities, NGOs, and they haven't really got the level of investment. They haven't really got the focus from the bigger players in the market in how to support them, how to make their IT work for them. So I saw an opportunity, and we set up a Spirit UK at that time. I've been running ever since, servicing some very. It's a privilege to service some of these organisations and get involved with what they do, and that was the spark, that big why, and that was the passion that ignited it, really.
So I'm keen to just explore or expand on the purpose. So you mentioned the spark of the why, and that is why. How important is that, not just to start an organisation, but to maintain that and to grow it?
To start the organisation, you need that why. You absolutely have to have it. Otherwise, you're not going to get out of bed and think, hey, I'll just start a company and go and spend some money, hire some people. It's just not going to happen. You've really got to want to do it. As you have, you've gripped this thing, by the back of the neck, and you're pushing through, and you've done something which is admirable. I think you need something like that. Then to maintain it, I think you've got to keep that vision alive. You've got to keep that why alive. You've got to understand why it's happening. And the people you surround yourself with further reinforce that and make you feel even more passionate about it. The thing that really did it for me was the results. When you start to see what you're doing is making a difference, then you think, I want to do this.
I think we felt exactly the same.
Yeah?
So I think the why for us, we started up, and the why has been during massive play for us, because as every business, we've had our highs, we've had our very lows in kind of exploring this sector. It's a very new place. There's not anyone doing what we're doing and how we're running it as well. So I think the feedback that we get on occasion, and we can kind of see we're seeing effects now of people moving into university to study cyber, to join us, and then to continue their careers. Awesome. And it's such a lovely pathway to see. And I think for Jenny and I, that's our why. But also, I would say you are also my why, because we've done this together, we've built it together. And there's a part of that's, as a duo, together we kind of built this. So
I think I agree with both of you that you need to have a why and you need to have a passion. Because when you are starting that entrepreneur journey and you're starting a business, it takes a lot of time, effort and investment. If you don't have a why and you don't have a passion, I don't know how you could continue. You just get stuck one week and be like, do you know what, this is enough. I'll go back to my 9 to 5. So you think you need to have that secure why you want to do this and continue doing it.
No, that's a good point. You mentioned obviously starting up together. How important is it for founders or starting up with a fellow founder, or did yourself, Pal, start on your own?
I envy you. I think that's amazing that you had each other there. I must admit, starting up for me was a bit lonely. It was a little bit lonely. I can imagine. And I kind of thought, well, okay, I realise I think in this way, how could somebody else see it? And if you've got that dynamic, I think that's fantastic.
I think we're very lucky that we share the same passion and the same morals.
Definitely.
So when one of us hit a struggle, I can go to Sophie and be like, please help, and she can look at it in a different way.
We're
really, really good.
We're very different people in that sense.
The
way we think and the way we process and the way we approach things is very different, which for the company is brilliant, because it means you get 2 very different perspectives that come together to form the right option in the end. It gives us a lot of space to think, and kind of creativity as well, I think, from our side. So, but I don't think you need to be a duo. Obviously not.
No, you've done it very successfully.
You learn. I think it's certainly an advantage to have that dynamic and that trust, and that what you talked about was your values and things being very similar. I think it's great. I learned that was a valuable thing. I learned to surround myself with people like that afterwards, to get the other perspectives, because I'm not right about everything. And I certainly wasn't then. It was like, I think this is a great idea. It was terrible mistakes.
I think I'm still learning, actually. I mean,
we all are.
We all are. I think that's the key thing as well, is just to continue to learn and continue to unlearn from experience. But what would be interesting to actually understand is how important is the other people around you, not just the team, but other support. Do you have other support around you, or is it just very lonely? Or is it a very lonely world?
I think in the cyber community, we have been welcomed with open arms, really.
Yeah, absolutely.
Considering it was an idea formed in a living room, and how far we've come since, the people that support us and put time into us and effort to understand what we do and work with us makes the world of difference. It means we can move forward in our journey, and for that, it means further supporting our young professionals in entering the cyber industry who are going to be running this place in a couple of years' time. So we need to make sure they're supported and making sure they're coming through.
Yeah, I think we've been very lucky in that respect with all the people that are supporting us. We've also got really good constructive feedback that we've been able to take, and I think if you are starting that journey, you need to be able to take good feedback, and sometimes it's not nice to hear, but people can be honest. You can grow. It's all in the way you say it, but no, I think taking that feedback and taking their support has really, really helped us.
Definitely.
So what have you, I suppose, in the early days, what are the kind of challenges or what's the type of feedback that you've been taking on board is probably another way of putting it.
So I think I was president of the Cyber Women at Warwick branch. Generally, I'm quite an extrovert. I don't mind speaking to people. That doesn't come naturally to everybody. And I think we're learning that actually maybe we need to put in some more workshops to support our students in leadership, which will benefit them, benefit us, benefit the community as a whole. That's the type of thing I think we're putting forward. We take a lot of feedback from our students because at the end of the day, we've built this community for them. If they don't like it, what are we up to?
Yeah, it's also nice because they come in with so much enthusiasm, so many ideas that we'd never think of. You're like, okay, how can we do that? And it's that sort of feedback's really good.
Absolutely, yeah. I think feedback is essential. It's part of the learning process. I see myself as someone who needs a message quite a few times before it finally goes into my head. And I didn't initially welcome it. I thought, I know what I'm doing. I'm right, and everybody else is wrong. And push on. But then you learn. And I think it's very important to have a good set of values that you follow, and certainly surrounding yourself with the right people to say, hang on, wait, what this is good. This is gold dust. This feedback, use it, and when you finally do use it and you apply it, you think, oh yeah, wish I'd done that a year ago. So I think it's invaluable. You can't discount it. In fact, you need it, and some of the tough feedback you get is the best. Absolutely best. And harsh lessons sometimes are the best ones.
Definitely.
So going a little bit further forward in terms of your proposition, so what you do as a CIC, community interest company. And how do you kind of like effectively communicate that value proposition? I know the purpose is important, but what are some of the techniques or challenges that you face in communicating what you do and to who?
So I think our biggest setback is age. And it shouldn't be. Wow. But I think obviously we have graduated in July and we've set up a business, and we don't have the experience there in business. We didn't do business degrees, we did cyber degrees. So it's a very new ride for us as well. And I think people either see that as a really great opportunity to invest, learn, help us as well, or they see it as you're not quite ready yet. And I think that's where we've struggled most, but it gives us an edge when we are trying to say what we are as a CIC, because we're very unique. So when we kind of communicate, we are always very open, very honest, very transparent, saying, yes, we did graduate in July, but this is how far we've come. And I think that helps us. And also the actual results we've been seeing and feedback as well that we've had from the students who go out and represent us and love what they do plays a big part in our kind of communication to people about what we do, really. They play a huge part there.
I agree with that, and I also think because we work with a lot of students, our whole thing is empowering students and treating them as young professionals. Sometimes we get a little bit of kickback that we're putting students in professional environments and treating them as young professionals, which they absolutely should be, because they're going to be the ones coming into the industry next. Sometimes people don't like when students are running the place, but we've done a really good job at making sure they're treated as young professionals, and because they will be the next leaders in cybersecurity.
Absolutely. I think something that you said earlier on as well, Mark, was about students, and you're always learning. I think you never stop being a student, and I think the day you stop being a student is probably a nail in your coffin, probably. But it's important to continue to learn, and I think it's important to give everyone the opportunity. I mean, both ends of the spectrum. If you're too young, you're too old. You're the wrong age, wrong height, whatever it is. All of these different things are put as barriers, and I believe, in my opinion, is that these are preconceived ideas about somebody being limited by their age or gender or whatever it is. One of my first jobs I ever got, I worked for a database company in Ilford, and the boss there was in his 20s, and everybody else was older than the boss. And he was a terrible boss. It was awful. I had no idea about management, had no idea about how to run and motivate the team. However, what he did have was the ability to learn, and he was humble enough to learn. So he went away and did some kind of a management training course, came back a completely different person. Probably one of the best managers I think I'd had in that field. And absolutely amazing turnaround. Just people skills, knowing how to respect people. So I think there's moments in your relationships, and how do you communicate? One of the things you were talking about earlier on. I believe that's through your people. I believe that's through the values that you instill in your people, that you bring out, that you make people comfortable enough to say, well, actually, this is me as a person. I want to be able to work in this way. These are the ethics, values, whatever you want to call them, that I work by. I'm happy with this, and I need to be able to express that at work. And you create an environment where they can.
Yeah.
And as soon as they can, everyone knows about you. They know about your value proposition. They know about what you're bringing, the kind of ethos you have, everything about it just speaks volumes. And that's what really works. That's what does the communication. So anybody you hire, you've got to see where they are on that journey as well.
It's a bit about personal brand there, I think, isn't it? Because you yourself represent your company, and then they work with you and the company. It's very two different things.
Yeah.
I think Jenny and I, we've been so close the whole way through. People do joke, do you ever leave each other's side? We do.
Very rarely.
But we're almost creating a brand together, and then it's focusing on the own personal brands that they'll be working with two individuals as well, who are very different, have exactly the same ideas and thought processes. But I think it's a lot about your individual self as well, and how you communicate, and your passions and morals for it.
No, I think that's a very good point, actually, about you are the representation of your organisation, especially in the early days of when you're starting off an organisation. People don't know the company name, they don't know the brand. You're creating the brand by who you are. Yeah. So if you don't put out your true authentic self, people will see through that straight away, and you won't have the success that you're having. So I think it's very important to actually show up as who you are, and not be. And I think you mentioned just not be almost like just not being afraid of what others may think as well.
Yeah, you may lose business. You may lose opportunities as a result. But maybe it's right for you to lose those particular opportunities and focus on ones that resonate more with you.
Definitely.
Yeah.
In terms of the qualities that an individual should have when starting a business, I know we're all different, but there tend to be a few common traits within entrepreneurs that may be different to people who are perhaps, for a better phrase, are constantly in the 9-to-5 permanent roles. That's not to say it's not discrediting that. That's still perfectly adaptable. Well, it takes a specific type of personality trait to start a business. What do you think of those?
I think you need to have a drive, if that makes sense. So if you have a thought, everyone's sort of like, oh, maybe I should do this one day. Those who start entrepreneurial journeys usually say, oh, I want to do this. Okay, I'm going to get up and do it. And they have a thought and they just get on with it. I think if you've got a drive and you've got real passion to do something, that kind of helps in an entrepreneur journey. What about you?
I'd say confidence.
Yeah.
It takes a lot to be able to set up a business, take the criticism and not let it affect you, but let it affect your next work and what you do and like your future endeavours. Confidence there in yourself and to be able to do it, I think, plays a huge part.
I also think with confidence you need to be able to take certain risks, but not risky enough that you're going to lose everything. But just those small risks that can make
barrier,
big wins.
Isn't it?
You need to know the right risks to take. But
I think you've got to have, I respect everything you've said there. I think you've got to have a compelling vision. You've got to have something that really gets you motivated, and you mustn't be afraid of failure. You've said that, take some risks. Obviously, not that you lose the shirt off your back, but be prepared.
Yeah.
And don't be afraid to fail your way to succeeding. Because most of us, let's face it, most of us do. We try something, it doesn't quite, you change it a bit, and it's working. So I think the vision is important. Second to that is you need to make sure you need to surround yourself with people who can make that vision into a drive it forward and make it into a reality. Like you said, a driving force. You need that sort of a person as well to make it happen.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think certainly when I reflect on my own experience, probably being involved in maybe a dozen different business ventures in different ways and forms, certainly in technology and cyberspace in particular. And I would say that they've all been successful. I mean that in a nice way, because every failure, I don't even have the concept of failure. Maybe I should.
How do you
What
measure
is
that?
failure?
How do you measure that success? I mean, how do you measure that success? I guess
Success is, it's almost like the bounce back ability. There you go. There's a word for you. It's about being able to bounce back from every little thing that you perhaps wouldn't necessarily. Let's rephrase. I don't look at things as failure. I look at things as, if I was presented with that decision or that to make, would I make the same decision again? So it's almost like a different kind of spin on failure. It's just saying, you know what, next time I'll do it that way, but I will do it that way.
Yeah.
And I think that's the bounce back ability. I will do it that way. The other thing for me is about resilience as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Resilience is something that comes from, which is very admirable, because it's like, for me, it comes from all the things that have happened in my life, from my personal failings, or my personal experiences, as well as business experiences, that make you who you are, which is very important, especially in the tough times in business. I'm sure there's one or two. Maybe they'll come. Don't worry, they'll come. But I think that's also important as well.
Yeah. I think with that, you need to be quite flexible. When you say you need to be resilient, you can't have a plan for everything. Some things are going to go wrong. You have to be flexible enough to be like, okay, I did plan for something else to happen, but maybe I should do this instead. This opportunities came up. Let's do that instead.
And with that, as well as time is precious,
Yeah.
and businesses take up a lot of time. So it's kind of your time management. I mean, if you know me personally, time management is probably not my strong point in life. I can still do it. That means you can too. But it is time consuming. There is no secret in that. And I think you've really got to love what you do. And you've really got to want it and be able to dedicate time to it as well, to really grow it to the potential of your idea that is really.
Yeah.
That's what I found anyway.
I think so. Yeah, I think the Pink Panther methodology.
Ooh, tell me more. I'm intrigued.
A very wise gentleman told me this. Said that if you approach these sorts of things like the Pink Panther, if you've ever seen those Pink Panther cartoons, you'll see that every now and again you get 20 tons dropped on him, or he'll be minced into pieces. He'll be sort of strung in some way or fall off a cliff or anything. It always bounces back up again, just like your analogy of bouncing back up again.
Yeah.
And I think that's a good approach, to have that level of resilience, robustness, to be able to bounce back and have a go. But equally, it would be insanity to just try the same thing again and then fail again. Of course, sometimes you can try the same thing again. Maybe something else wasn't quite right. Maybe where you were trying to apply it wasn't quite right. But it's good to be able to have the humility to understand that you might need to adjust your plan a bit. And I think ego sometimes gets in the way. I think it really gets in the way, because you think, well, like me, I know what I'm doing. I mean, this is fine. It's that customer, or it's this, and it's not. it is me, and I need to let go and change. And that's again where your partnership is. I admire that, because you probably tell each other a lot of truths.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, we are very honest with each other.
Yeah, I think you have to be. If you're going in with a business partner, you can't go in with lying to them or hiding things.
No.
You have to be upfront. You have to say, okay, I'm at my capacity today.
Yeah.
I cannot do any more.
Yeah.
And then be honest about how much time you've got, what your capacity is, because you also need to be aware of your capacity, because if you're starting your own business, you don't want to burn out.
Yeah.
It's a long stride to keep going. And when you're at capacity, know it and take a break for a minute and come back fully functioned.
I failed on that. I failed on that in such a big way, because I kind of knew my own capacity, but the people around me that were helping me, I didn't focus on their capacity. And that's where I made a big mistake. And I kind of pushed people really hard, thinking, I can do this, well, they can do it. And actually, no, they couldn't. But because they were good at something else, because they were wired up in a different way. And I had to learn to respect other people's points of opinion and their capacity themselves, and how they like to work for the best output, for the best quality.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we felt that for our friendship, really. 'Cause, I mean, we've gone from best friends to colleagues to housemates, and they're three very different things.
Yeah.
And they do require being honest.
How do you separate that? How did you talk about work at the breakfast table, or
Yeah, quite literally.
Yeah.
It spreads over absolutely everything at this
no.
point.
Yeah. We've done quite well at maintaining a friendship and business partners at the same time.
But it does mean we do have to be honest with
We
each
do,
other.
yeah. And I think we're quite good at respecting each other. When we say, oh, I've got this on, I cannot do that, we're like, okay, I'll leave you.
Yeah,
do you have a cut-off time to say, right, 8 o'clock, this is it, movie time? You know,
Yeah.
You know what the
we'll
funny
talk
thing
about-
is? We actually are going out for drinks on Wednesday and we're not allowed to talk about the business. I'm writing it in my
decided.
calendar that this is friendship drinks
It's a quick
only.
half an hour drink. Or
Yeah, quite literally.
The moment we go into it, no.
But we do joke that we know each other so well by now that we know each other and we know our triggers
Yeah.
and we know where we fall down. So
Absolutely.
I'm very much a person where I do struggle to see my own boundaries. Sometimes I will burn out without realising it. I'm still very much learning that in the business side and moving from university into here. You're better at seeing that than I am.
Yeah, I
which
get
is-
burnt out and I'm just like, no, that's it. I cannot look at the phone. I cannot pick that up.
Yeah, so
And I will tell you when I'm burnt out.
so it's working between both.
Yeah,
But it's
yeah.
such good fun.
It is good
It's
fun.
really good
I
fun.
wouldn't change it for the world, to be honest.
So I'm curious, in a co-founder situation, how do you make decisions?
So we've started doing this new thing. So, we moved to the same city. So we do once a week, we do dinner.
Yeah.
And we sit down, we put down everything that's happened that week. And generally, decision-wise, we've not really hit a point where we've said
No.
one of us is completely on one side and one of us is completely on the other. We do talk through the pros and cons, where each other's coming from. If we're disagreeing slightly, there'll always be a reason for it somewhere.
Yeah.
Sometimes it normally just requires an explanation as to where the other person's coming from.
Yeah, there's
But-
a lot of external factors as well. Most of the time we're dealing with a branch or student or a company or whatever, and we think, okay, what did they want as well? And it brings
Yeah.
in that third factor of, okay, so you want this, we want that, they want that, okay. And we just kind of figure it out.
But in decision-wise, I think because we started off with the initiative of Warwick, the staff and students were brilliant there who kind of helped us set this up. I think because we both started with the same morals and passions and vision, in decision making, we've still got that very similar passions, morals,
Yeah.
decision. I mean, starting a company, yes, is a completely different venture. And we did kind of have the discussion of, do we go as a CIC? Are we a charity? Are we just going to do it as a company? And that took a bit of discussion.
Yeah.
Because that's about our futures as well.
Yeah, that took a lot of research as well. Instead of being like, okay, I've got this idea, we were like, okay, let's research it first and come back to this conversation with what we've learned.
Yeah.
And I think also it comes back to listening and talking to each other. If you're not willing to listen to your business partner, you probably shouldn't be in a business with them.
So your answer is Wednesday night dinner is where we
Wednesday
make
night
dinner.
I'll be there. One of the things which we haven't actually spoken about, which is quite ironic, we haven't actually spoke about financial goals and the importance or otherwise of financial goals in business. I know we're talking about different types of companies here, but maybe Pal, do you want to mention something about what your views of that? Or?
Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, I just to kind of add to the last point, I journal. So I write down, and I'll find a quiet time where my mind isn't busy with other transactional tasks or other things, and I can think about what I want to do clearly, and then at the end of it, the decision kind of appears. Or if it doesn't, I haven't spent enough time.
Spiritual awakening comes to you.
This is a terrible idea. Go away and think up a better idea. But in terms of decisions, including financial decisions, I think fundamentally, you've got to look at you've got to know what your financials are. You've got to know what your baseline operating costs are going to be. So what is it that you need to keep walking forwards, monthly, quarterly, whatever it is? What is it that you need to get things moving and walking forwards by themselves in your business? And there's obviously a lot of detail behind that. But if you don't think in that way, it's a bad start, right? You've got to have some sort of vision or a goal to say, right, I need this much. This is what I need to work out. Here's what I need to. In order to do that, you then work backwards from there to say, what do I need to do to achieve that walking forwards goal to get to that point? And that's where you start to break it down and make it a bit more granular. What's your product? What's your service? What are you selling? How many customers do you need? How are you going to get to those customers? Who's your target audience? And all those sorts of good things come out, which you'll find in most Business 101 type books. I think that the two are tied together, making decisions and making financial investments where do you need to spend money to be able to accumulate it? So you've got to treat it that way. And I think you've got to treat it as something that's fluid. So it's a tool and it's fluid. So your financials, I don't think, should be necessarily about amassing wealth, but creating a mechanism and a process that walks forward by itself to build wealth and to be able to, off the back of that, then fund other business initiatives. And also, of course, pay your workforce, keep them happy, and do all those other good things that are essential.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think this is quite a new conversation for us because we're not the finance people.
No.
We don't know money, and this is a very new thing that we've got to figure out.
Well, we do know money.
We do know money. We know it now after we've started this.
Yeah.
So
We had to figure that out along the way, but it was definitely a struggle for us to figure out, because we're a non-profit as well. We don't have that pipeline of money coming in, but we certainly have money going out that we need to balance.
We're always quite transparent about how we do this funding side. It's kind of everyone says, hang on, conferences cost money, how are you doing this? So we take in funding and sponsorship from industry partners, donations, etc. for the work we do, and then how we distribute that out is our branches come to us and say, we want to host this event, can we please have X, Y, and Z amount to do this? And we normally say, yep, that's fine. What are you going to achieve with this event? You know, we've got morals here. How are you going to meet them?
Yeah.
We have that discussion. And normally, if it's ethical, moral, and legal, we're not going to say no to it.
Yeah.
So that's normally the three things. I'm like, have a think before you come and pitch to me something about, am I going to get put in prison for this? And they've been brilliant so far. So we have those conversations. Jenny and I then go out. But for us, money isn't just cash, money is venues, money is food sponsors, etc. And that's the bit I think we didn't see coming. So we do have people that pay us directly, which is absolutely excellent. It means we can keep up our costs, and as you said, we do have that baseline of we need to make sure we've got X, Y, and Z amount.
We need to be able to pay the bills that we need to pay.
But then we've also got the other side of that, that's kind of, if we don't have cash flow to go and get a venue, we go out and say, actually, can we use your venue? So there's that too, and it means we can be quite fluid with how we kind of manage our money as well.
We can be quite flexible, which is quite nice, because if people want to support us, they can say, we have this venue, we can't give you X, Y, and Z, but we can give you this, and we're like, okay, that's interesting, we can take you up on that offer.
Definitely. But
the
one thing about us that we were very strict on is we will never rely on memberships, and our students will never be out of pocket for doing CIC events. So if we ask them to go to an event to represent us, they will always be paid for their travel. Bits like that. They're never going to go and say, I had to pay 20 quid to go on a train to do this event for another company. They will always be made back. Fantastic. So hopefully they are volunteers, but the experience they get, and then the fact they're not out of pocket, we can see is benefit to them. So
I guess less from a startup perspective, but I see, because we deal mainly with third sector, a lot of organizations will jump on a bandwagon, and this is now looking at it from a client perspective. They'll spend money on stuff because everybody else is. They'll think, I need one of these, I need one of those, I need 4 of these, and they'll buy those things. They'll go out there and they'll spend that money, whereas actually there are cheaper and arguably better ways of doing things that don't necessarily require the same amount of money to be spent, but there's less money to be made out of those things. So the people who are selling those things are going to be selling them pretty hard to say, hey, you need this, you need the whatever it is, the Okikoki 5000. That's the right one to get. And you've got to buy that, because if you haven't got that, then you're just not like all the rest. Whereas actually a lot of, especially in the third sector, we're finding a lot of organizations can use older equipment and they're fine. They don't need to have such a big animal to feed, and they're perfectly able to conduct all of the work that they need to do on a much smaller cost base. So I think that thinking outside the box and some of the imaginative ideas you've already sort of talked about a bit there are great. I think that applies to technology as well, and the use of technology inside the organisation.
Absolutely.
Definitely. We were excited about our banners, weren't we?
Yeah.
We bought banners the other day for our branches.
Yeah, it was sort of fun.
I know, we should have. Fun. Oh, they're beautiful.
Yeah, we always have a conversation before we make an investment of, is this the best investment for us?
Wow, okay.
Is there a cheaper option?
Yeah. And that comes as part of a CIC. CIC stands for Community Interest Company. Everything we spend has to be of benefit to the community. So we always have that conversation of, okay, is this actually beneficial, or do we just want it? So Jenny and I would not be going around as sports cars anytime soon, sadly.
Absolutely not.
I don't think they benefit the community very much.
No, but that's it's very good, obviously, because the finance and the purpose are so intrinsically linked there, where perhaps in some organisations there may be more loose links between the financial investment and the outcome to the stakeholder, the shareholder, the customer at the end of the day. So what I wanted to maybe just to expand on is, what is the role of in either the customer or the end consumer in your interest? What's the role of the individual who's actually benefiting from the services that you provide?
I think obviously ours are students generally, so they are the ones we always set out to benefit. This is changing, so we are creating an alumni community. So Jenny and I graduated last year. We're the oldest in the organisation at the time. We were only 8, and now we're over 40, and we've got more people graduating. And we were like, we don't just want them to go off into the wild and never see them again. So we're creating that alumni network, so when they graduate, they can be still in our community. We can kind of support them in their new jobs. They can come back to us, etc. So we've got a real kind of mix of people who are our end consumers. So the students wise is opportunity. So they work with us, and we hope that the opportunities they give them is worth their time. And then the industry too, we're very flexible, and we say different people in industry and businesses that support us are going to want different things. They have different goals, different morals. So again, it's making sure that what we're giving them, and access to students, kind of working with them to maybe be a little bit better in terms of diversity when they bring on their graduates, can be quite a common one we see. And then what they give us as well, the kind of partnerships back and forth there and relationships we form are very important for our endpoints, I think.
Yeah, I think you said that very well. I think our biggest thing is bringing those right opportunities to our students that not only boost them in their career, but can also promote diversity within the sector.
Yes.
Because it's not a very diverse sector at the minute, and our students are very passionate about changing that. So I think that's a big thing for us.
I think that's great. It sort of reminds me very, very much of the IT Society in the early days. We never took it as far as you did. I mean, it's fantastic what you're doing.
Thank you.
It really is. But I think having that community, you find that as well as being able to help people to get on the ladder to start sort of moving forward in their career, they also then come back.
Yes.
In that community, and they then create an even more, they enrich it even further and create more activities that are more supportive of perhaps for professionals from that community further down the road a bit.
Yeah.
Which is a really exciting thing, because it just gets more and more power and more kind of benefit as it's going along, provided that the overall kind of ethics structure of the organisation stays, and it stays under your leadership, and you maintain that kind of vision and that keep drawing forward in the same way. I think that's a key. That's really important. Going back to one of the things you said, Mark, I think financials are really important, but I think that the money can come. I think if you go chasing after it, it could be quite elusive. I think you've got to do what you feel passionate about, what you feel right about. So for me, what I found is what's more important is the why, and secondly is how you go about doing it, because you can make money really quickly. There are lots of ways to do it, and maybe some bordering on not quite so ethical, and obviously there's a whole range of other stuff that's definitely not ethical. But you can make money fast, and I have seen lots of examples of people making money really fast, but in a way that I wouldn't be comfortable with doing personally.
Yep.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure you've all got examples where you've seen that. Oh yeah, that person did really well in a really short space of time, but yeah, that's what they are. Yeah. Good luck to them. Do you want to be that person? So for me, it's about the values and things, keeping those at the forefront, and then standing by them, even when you're tested.
Yeah.
To say this is what I believe. I know that commercially this might not be the best choice, but this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to walk away from this, or whatever it is. So I think that's more important.
I think there's a wider thing around society as a whole here around what people measure as success as well.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So from my perspective, we see a lot of success measured in material things, whether it's financials, whether it's status, whether it's cars, houses, when actually, from me personally, success is internal to oneself, not necessarily what you have. It's actually in the relationships that you have. It's actually in the people. So I'm not sure how important that is from your kind of respective views as well.
I think running a non-profit, that was always going to be our goal.
Yeah.
Yeah, so again, full transparency, Jenny and I don't get paid. There is going to have to be a stage that if this blows up, we're going to have to take some sort of financial compensation for our time. We're very aware of that. The CIC will allow us to do that in time. But I mean, we ran a conference, and then I think I was panicking in a corner about something. A lady came up to me and she was like, "Why are you worrying? You're going to get paid anyway." I was like, "I don't get paid for this. I don't get paid to worry." What do you mean? So it's our relationships and what we see from our students and watching their journeys grow, I think is our financial compensation, really. And always will be.
Yeah. I think in terms of measuring success, I think everyone kind of measures success a little bit differently. I know I might measure success differently than Sophie will with our nonprofit and with our company. But I think I would definitely say I feel successful when I see our students thriving and I see them happy in where they're going and they feel like they've got a pathway now. That makes me feel like, okay, we've done our job, we've supported them as much as we can. And that kind of makes me feel quite happy.
Some of them scare me now, honestly.
Yeah,
I thought I was quite ambitious. I mean, we put on this conference in our first year and we took 200 people, some brilliant speakers. We were like, okay, this was excellent. And then they came back to us this year and were like, yeah, we want to go twice that. And I was like, oh gosh. And I think
they come to us every week with a new idea. Yeah. And I'm like, okay. And they're like, we've already started. I'm like, oh, wow, okay. They're very, very good.
The risk taking that they will take, but with reasons to take it, with big reward for them, for the community and for the purpose that they work. That's success to me, because I'm seeing these students start off where they're shy, they would really. And then we've got ones that have started and they're running national conferences. It's like, my goodness me.
Amazing.
That really makes me think some of the students we've met have really changed throughout the time that we've known them. They came to us as shy, as you said, and they've definitely taken everything in stride and definitely just got stronger and stronger. It's very cool to see.
It's not ready for them.
They're not.
Amazing. So, Jenny, there's a word you used, and I think that sort of captures it. It's thriving. Thriving. And I think that when you see people doing well, they're thriving, and they're confident or in their own way. Not everybody's going to be an extrovert. You've always got to listen to the quiet person in the room as well.
Yeah.
You can't just focus on the extroverts. And there are people who want to do things much more detail oriented. You've got to listen to everybody. But I think when people are doing well and you see that emotion, you see that kind of heartfelt gratitude, they're grateful for whatever that's happened to them and where they are now compared to where they were before. That just makes everything worthwhile. And
absolutely.
Personally, you talk about success. I would measure success as, is there food on the table, right? Is there a roof over your head? I mean, you know, we can easily measure success with like, you know, which year is your Porsche or whatever you drive, you know. But I think we all can easily. So just pretend for a moment. Of course we can't. But I think it's important to look at the fundamentals. So contentment is really key. And I think when somebody is genuinely content where they are in terms of their progress, how they're moving forwards, that they're open-minded, they're kind, you know, to themselves and to other people around them, and they're developing in that way, then you can say, yeah, that was successful. That worked out well. And I think that sometimes people don't believe it. They don't believe that that's possible. And one of the things I feel you're doing is you're creating that belief in the people who come into contact with your organization. You're making them feel like, hey, I can do this.
I think we try and empower them exactly where we can and see their potential as well. But from what you said there about the listening to the quiet ones as well, it's really important for us. We work with so many students, and yes, some of them do grow and they're extroverts, so they're very talkative, and we love that. But also the people that aren't quite there and maybe communicate in different ways and different styles and come to us and kind of won't say everything in the group chat, will come to us personally. It's just as important. I think also success for us is measured on the fact that they feel confident enough to be able to come to us. And another part of that too is we said, I mean, Jenny and I graduated in July. We're very still much in the student mindset ourselves, and we like to say you can come to us to talk, whether it be about a bad experience you've had, whether it be about a thought about the company, whether you want to tell us what you've had for dinner. I really don't mind. We're here always. And the fact that they can come forward and say, actually, I don't like what you're doing here, I think you could be doing better, is a huge win for us, because we've instilled confidence for them to do that. And it means we've just got a massive community of friends, and it's brilliant.
That's
We're not
very true.
bosses. We never will be. We're guided with supporters, and that's exactly how we want to stay.
Yeah.
So I think success there is honesty, and the fact we do get honesty is brilliant.
Yeah. I think society, I mean, I'm not trying to make a sweeping statement, but it seems to me sometimes likes to label people, whether they're students, whether they're disabled, whether it's because you're a woman or whether it's because you've got brown skin or black skin or whatever it is. They like to put labels on things. People do. I think people do. And I think that's something that has to change. I think people mustn't limit based on their own ideas and their own prejudices and thoughts and things and their own internal levels that they might have. I think that overall society is starting to change. People are starting to realise, actually, we're talking about professionals here, we're talking about people, there's much more to them. Equally, people are a bit more introverted, a bit quieter, they label them sometimes and think, oh, well, that person's quiet, doesn't say anything, doesn't know anything, whereas actually might be the brightest person in the room.
Yeah.
And I think that it's important for us to create environments within which people don't feel that they've been labelled or limited in any way.
Definitely.
So we've got a responsibility towards our community as well as to our clients and other people that they're going to try to bring about that change. A friend of mine, he runs Disability Rights UK, and just a label about disability, for example, people might think, oh, this guy's disabled. And they may have a label in their head, they may have a prejudice. No one's perfect, I'm not perfect, nobody is. But he's done work in this area to bridge that gap, to break those preconceived ideas about people and placed people in very good positions that normally they wouldn't have the opportunity to because of these preconceived ideas and labels. So I think what you're doing is really groundbreaking. I think with the students as well, and bringing that to the forefront, saying, hey, these are students, but they're professionals.
Thank you. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
a massive thing there is inclusivity, isn't it?
Yeah.
Inclusive community. People see Cyber Women Groups. Yes, we do have a focus on women. However, our focus is subtle in the fact that you will probably see women speakers at our events. We're never going to come and ask a woman to talk about being a woman in cyber. Everybody knows that. We're all there. But we're also probably never going to run anything that's women-only events because that defeats the purpose for us. We're inclusive. We welcome everybody into our spaces to be part. And some people say, actually, are we welcome? And yes, we do. We are called Cyber Women Groups. We are called Cyber Women Act. Everyone is welcome. We have people who don't identify as female on our executive teams, which is absolutely excellent. And we will continue to push that narrative for as long as we physically can, I think is the way.
Yeah, I think to go back to what you were saying with the labels and how we do need to make a change, that people shouldn't be seen just by their label. I think it also comes back to saying what Sophie was saying, making sure that people feel welcomed and that people are welcoming in nature. Because if people are coming to us and saying, am I welcome here? That's a crazy question to make. So I'm obviously like, of course, everybody should be welcome in every place. So
Absolutely.
I think there's a massive change that needs to be made to stop the labelling and saying, okay, I see you, I recognise you, and I accept you, and I welcome you into whatever community you want to be a part of.
Yeah, I think one of the things you mentioned as well is around the empowerment and also enabling that culture of openness, of welcoming everyone from every walks of life. How important is it for yourselves or for leaders within or for entrepreneurs to set that tone and to be able to create that culture which isn't just reliant on you but reliant on all the people that you're in contact with, the students or customers or employees from your perspective, Pal, as well?
I mean, if I can take that one first, obviously, please add to it. But I think that there's two things to that. One is yes, it is important. I think you've got to create that culture. You've got to try to maintain it. There's a balance here, and the balance is the challenge. So yeah, you want to create an inclusive culture. You want to make sure that you've got the right type of people, but you don't want to have all the same type of people either. You need to make sure that you've got a good mix of different types of people. So you've got a dynamic, and you've got something where ideas can be bounced off each other and you can do stuff. Equally, what you're looking for in terms of qualities from employees is you don't want somebody who's going to come in and upset the apple cart. So you have to be able to, almost like you're spotting talent, like you're a football sort of scout, something like that. You're spotting talent and you're trying to figure out, right, okay, this person here in the interview, they did this, they showed this, they don't have these cyber skills, but they've got this. They've got this fantastic way of this approach here. That's really great. I think they'd be really good for the team. And one of the things I've learned the hard way is that you've got to be careful who you bring in, who you involve in the team, and your team composition and the chemistry in the team, how it works, how they fit together, how they do stuff. Because that, if you don't pay attention to that, then the very kind of values that you've been talking about someone could go against them in practice. So you've got to keep an eye on that, especially in the early days, to see, well, how's this person performing? How are they doing? Are they really a good fit for our organization? Or are they going to do something really crazy? Because they come from some different environment where maybe they need more work to adjust. Maybe they're better off in a different role, not necessarily in your organization. Maybe they're better off doing something different, right? But you've got to keep an eye on that. So it's a bit of both. It's keeping that balance of making sure you've got the dynamic and you're bringing in talent, but equally that you're not destroying something. You're creating something that is a healthy, positive place.
Yeah, I agree.
Really good point.
If you want to create that healthy and positive place, I think if you're going to lead the company and you're going to start it up, you need to have the right mindset and you need to be what you want to represent. You need to have those qualities and have those values, because if you're the one who's like, oh, I don't want this, I don't want that, but I want to hire people that do that for me, it's never going to work.
I think as company owners, you set the precedent.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we're quite clear with that. We say all our branches on board with Jenny and or I, and we always say, this is how we run, this is our morals, this is how we expect you to be. Policies, procedures in place. Obviously, people don't have to follow them. People sign to them, but they won't necessarily follow them.
Cyber all the time.
Yeah, but we obviously working with students as well. They're all very different. Each branch has a very different dynamic. We try and really get an understanding of how they work best, see the different players in the team, and if we can see a very subtle change that might need to happen, we can gently suggest, but then we will only ever suggest because we always say the branches are run by the students, it's their initiative. We will never take force over them unless we are physically put in a position where we have to.
Absolutely.
So I think the way we come in initially to them and the way we speak to them, communicate openly, that does play a big part of how they then go and represent it as well.
I think that does play a big part of how we communicate with the students that we bring in, because if we talk to them in a certain tone, they're not going to feel confident and they're not going to respect us enough to come back and talk to us. Then it's a two-way thing that we need to, if we don't respect you, you're obviously not going to respect us.
Yeah, I normally set the president in my ED and I'm like, hi guys, and I'm in a massive fluffy thing and they're like, oh yeah, there we go. It's immediately not too serious. So
yeah, I think what you're saying is really just some of what you'd expect from the leadership traits that you obviously everyone here is demonstrating, and I think it's those kind of like understanding, empathy of who you are serving at the end of the day.
I think there's a balance. You have that kindness is important, that softness is important, but I think you've also got to be firm.
Yeah.
So there is a balance, and people need to understand that balance, that they respect you as well at the same time in a way. So there's moments in any individual that you interact with, there will be moments which you can demonstrate that level of trust and respect. That being genuine in those moments is really important. Taking out the time is really important, because that then builds the relationship. Once you've got the relationship, you can then communicate over that relationship. If I met you tomorrow, I didn't know you, and just tried to communicate something with you, thinking, who are you? I don't know anything about you. But because we've had a chance to get to know each other, we have mutual respect for each other, we have a level of trust for each other, and I think that's really key. We can then talk about things openly and honestly, and people will listen. I'll listen.
Yeah, I think it's very important actually. The word trust is, you have to trust the leaders, and you have to be able to trust also the people in your organisation. There's a level of trust that you need to have with each other that's very, very important if you want anything to work.
Definitely. But I think actually being firm is one of those things that everybody says, and it's a lot more difficult to do in practice.
Yeah,
and I don't think that gets sort of representation sometimes, especially, I mean, I keep going back to Cyber Women, but we run a student-based initiative. We're all very good friends in there. And sometimes there does have to be parts where Jenny and I have to make decisions. And one of those was last year, I was handing over my presidency role, and we had 3 women, all completely capable in different ways, and we had to choose one. And they were our friends as well.
Yeah, that was really tricky.
It's being firm and being decisive and choosing the best things for the company. whilst also keeping in mind that you've got people to make sure that they may understand the decision that you've made and you're transparent with why you've done it.
Yeah.
And I think it's very easy to say, be firm, be kind.
Oh, God. Yeah.
And
It's hard.
oh my
Yeah.
goodness me, it can be shattering sometimes.
It can be
They're still
difficult.
friends. All of them.
Yeah, we're still friends.
Actually, then you did it right then.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Very
I think if you
friends.
can be firm and they still respect you, you've done it well. You're
Yes.
okay.
Yeah,
As long as
tactfully.
they're not friends of friends now. Just
Friends are friends.
Friends are friends.
Oh,
Tact is totally important, and respect, I think. So even if you've got to let somebody go, if you've got to,
Mm-hmm.
that's got to be done in a way that's respectful,
Yeah.
and you can part on good terms.
Definitely.
Especially if you're transparent of why. You're not just saying you have to leave now. Goodbye.
yeah,
You're transparent with it.
exactly. I think it's always, I like to use the term as no surprises. People know where you are at any point in time, and going back to when you're working with people in an organisation, it's really about maintaining those touch points to really understand the expectations from both sides. That yes, you're still on track. You're still helping us as an organisation grow, and we're supporting you and understand how we can help you. So it's that two-way thing is so important in any entrepreneurial journey, especially when in a younger company or a smaller organisation, when there is only few people. It's even more critical, I find, to make sure that those few people are a lot more in sync. It's like your first hire is always going to be your key hires for an organisation, because they are the ones that are going to set the tone and culture for the other 300 or so that you're going to take on
Yeah, they're
in the
helping.
next 12 to 18 months.
See aim anyway.
They're helping you build your brand as well.
There's
Really
a
helping.
I guess not the building piece, but beyond that, I think there's a syndrome that's quite dangerous as well, founders syndrome, where people just can't let go.
Yeah.
So they're actually kind of holding the organisation back because of the way they think. And sometimes I think after you've built something and it's working and it's moving forward, you need to sometimes step back a bit and let people fail. Sometimes let them do it their way, within reason. It's not so it puts you out of business, but you got to take a back seat and let them carry on and do it. Because you could probably step into any position in your organisation and do a really good job. You could, as a leader, you could. But should you? Should you take it away, or should you let someone develop and guide them and give them a nudge every now and again? Maybe that's a better way to do things.
Yeah, it's a really interesting way to do things.
I think in my journey, I certainly struggled with that. I know what I'm doing. I have my methods of doing things. And I would always hold my hands up to say, if I've got to give someone a job, it does stress me out more than me doing the job itself. And that's something I've just had to learn, especially as a personal side of this business. As you learn the business, you learn about yourself as well.
Yeah, you do.
And the traits you have and the traits that maybe aren't so good. And I think I've got better at it, certainly. But I think founder syndrome for me, by not holding the business back, but by loving the business so much and being so proud of it, it's kind of like, I can't stay here the whole time.
I think there's a struggle with that because you're so invested as well that you don't want to step back. But it can be really interesting to step back and just let whatever natural course wants to take.
I think the challenge is transitioning that business from being seen as an individual to that of a company. And if an organization is to grow, then being able to find that transition. I like to use my success criteria is almost like, how do I make myself redundant in this role? How do I make myself redundant in the other role? Because if I'm trying always to do that, then I know I'm empowering someone else to do it. Because I know where my value will be going forward is to creating an organization that can live and breathe for itself. And then I can step away and do it again and again.
I need to take some lessons off you, don't I?
Yeah, I think that's a great measure of success, is if your business can continue without you. That's definitely a measure of success, because I would really struggle to walk away from anything I started.
But I think, obviously, depending on where you are on your journey as well, obviously you're still fairly early on, but there may come a time whereby you want to bring on people, and then it's not about leading the business per se. There's always going to be an element of that by championing the business, but you want to lead the people so that they can run the business.
Yeah. Interestingly, it's a step we're taking, and I know this will air in time that we can announce it. Yeah. But we've brought people into our CIC team now. We've asked a certain amount of the ones graduating, which I think firstly was a huge step for us. Yeah. Because it was distributing tasks and understanding that as a two, this business has grown faster than we ever thought it would, and understanding we need help is the first step. But also it'll be for us as well to bring people in so we can start taking that step back and focusing on the more important side of things and ensuring the business is continuing to grow instead of being so invested in the small parts that can be perfectly managed by the incredible people we're bringing on.
Yeah.
I think with it, that's a big thing of business continuity. If you want your business to last, you've got to bring people in. You've got to let them run with it as well and teach them how to be leaders as well.
I think we've realised we're not superwoman.
Yeah. That's a big thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Maybe you are. I think the important thing is there has to be an incentive. There has to be a reason. And anybody who comes in, say for example, you've got an employee that comes into the business, they may not see things in the same way that you as founders see it. But there has to be some reason. It could be that they're trying to pick up new skills. Maybe it's a financial incentive. Maybe there's some kind of recognition that they need, but something that drives them, something that pulls them forward. Maybe it's the sector they're working in. I mean, we're not a not-for-profit organisation, but we might as well be, because the sector we work in doesn't have a lot of money. But it's so people don't join our company to make lots of money.
Yeah.
They join the company because they enjoy working with the organisations that we work with. They like working with, whoever is ovarian cancer or whoever we're working with. They like that, and they like to be involved with stuff. So if they're doing a marathon, they'll join in with it, But I think you've got to, whatever field you're working in, whether it's non-profit or otherwise, the people have got to be really excited about it.
Definitely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, pulling people into the CIC team, we did say, we were like, we're volunteers, you will also be volunteers. It'll be more responsibility. So actually, if you do want to say no, we completely understand. But all 5 of them have joined us.
Wow.
Yeah.
Just to show that actually
Fantastic.
they love it as much as we do.
But
So
I think that comes from the real clarity of purpose.
yes.
Yeah.
And then if an organisation has got real clarity of purpose, then you will attract individuals who align with that purpose.
Yeah.
I think where organisations fall down, and there are a lot of them, their clarity of purpose is not clear. They're only clear on perhaps they know what they're doing, they know their customers, but the why is missing, apart from the financial measurements that they need to success, or they have to cut 10% of the workforce. They're driven by different motives, and they kind of lose their way. And I think that's the key thing, is maintaining that purpose so you don't lose that way in the 3, 5, 20 years when we're back here sitting here.
Interestingly, I don't know if any of you watch The Apprentice. I do. But there was one of the...
what's that all about?
They had 2 in the final. One of them said, actually, my business isn't all about making profit. It's about everything else in between it. And I was like, actually, what a lovely perspective to have, that you are focusing on everything and not just how much money you're bringing in, where you're spending it. There's so much more to starting a business, running a business, than just financial.
Did that person actually win?
No. Oh. It would have been lovely if I could sit here and said yes.
But it's quite. I'm sure there are other factors that made that decision.
Yes.
Definitely, but that would kind of resonate with certain types of investors. I think matching an investor who has that purpose-orientated angle with an individual who is driven purpose, as well as obviously with an economic success criteria too, comes into play.
Matching your endpoint, really, isn't it?
Very much so. So I think just moving on slightly, I really want to kind of like dig deeper into some of the or just touch on some of the challenges that you faced. What are maybe the 1 or 2 kind of like key challenges you faced that you go, oh my gosh, how did we get over that? Oh, it was that easy, was it?
I had no challenges whatsoever.
too many to recollect all at once.
How long have you got? I think, as we were saying, I think our biggest challenge was getting our brand out there and being named and kind of creating our own brand, really, on the basis of the fact that, yes, we didn't have a business degree. That was our massive challenge, I think, and getting people to believe in our vision.
Yeah, I think a big challenge for us is, obviously we started this initiative called Cyber Women at Work. We had to really think of how we expand this now to show our new brand of Cyber Women Groups. I think because we had so much publicity and so much drive from our previous initiative, trying to make people realise we've now expanded even further. That was quite a challenge for us, and how to capture the same audience and bring them with us.
It's a good point you mentioned, actually. Is very, from my experience, it's quite easy to start up. It's the challenge of growth, and how do you maintain and manage the growth is actually almost like a lot more difficult than just the initial startup process.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, even down to silly things like our logos. We have our logo, and then our branches have logos based on their university colours. We very quickly realised universities have the same colours.
You can zoom out, yes.
And then we thought, and to be fair, we've got an amazing logo creator who does all of that. She's brilliant. But it was one of those things that you didn't think you'd be thinking, oh my gosh, there's not enough colours on the spectrum because we've run out of colours to use. Like, that's one of those challenges we never saw coming. But creative branding, and as Jenny said, getting people to realise we've expanded is a lot more than a LinkedIn post. It's a lot of networking, a lot of speaking about it, a lot of talking.
It's a lot of awareness and letting people know. And because each of our branches have different names as well, some people say, oh, Cyber Women at Leicester, for example, is that different to Cyber Women at UE? And we're like, they're under the same umbrella. But getting people to realise that can be quite difficult sometimes.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think my biggest challenges have been broken down into two areas. One is people, not all of them, but
99% of
them. Sometimes it's difficult with certain individuals in a team, or certain team dynamics can be quite difficult to overcome, and those have been some of the biggest challenges to resolve. Very difficult sometimes, because people are. You can get somebody who's very passionate about something, has a certain personality trait, does things in a certain way that really isn't positive. And then how do you deal with that? How do you, in a kind way, handle that situation and move forwards from there? So that's been challenging. The other side of it is in maintaining your values and principles and everything in a commercial environment where you're surrounded by organizations that don't.
Yeah. Yep.
They will do anything to win. So an example is one of our customers said, we bid for this contract, and the customer said, hey, okay, so on the form it said, how long will it take before you restore our services if we have a disaster? And when I filled it in, I put down, I don't know, because I don't know your technology, and I don't know how long it's going to take to restore, because I don't know what you've got. I'd be guessing. So out of respect, I'm not going to fill this in. Yep. And the initial thing the customer said, he actually rang me and he said, we did actually reject you. Initially, we rejected you because your answers were very honest. Because everybody else said, an hour. Yeah. And then we took, and as it happens, that customer is still with us today, and that was some 7 years ago. But when we took over the customer, when we looked at the restore time, it was around about 3 or 4 days. There was no way that you could make that technology go any faster. It was just so old.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the guy put 1 hour, or girl, put 1 hour on it. It was like, well, how? Yeah. So I find balancing what is valuable to you, to be honest and transparent and everything, with a market that isn't necessarily the same is tough.
Yeah, and that's credit to you though, and how you run your business, and you're transparent, and you're and I think that's something with us, credit. And it's something we have struggled with, and I think especially around our naming conventions, because I can understand how people would get kind of confused with our naming conventions, but we've been mislabeled as societies, we've been labelled as XYZ Computing Society, we've been called Women in Cyber, and the problem is with that is there is a lot of us in the space. Yeah. So all of us have very different ways of putting the word women and the word cyber into a kind of title.
Yes, how many permutations and combinations.
Yeah, so it's misrepresented. It's our worry that they get misrepresented at the same time we're getting misrepresented. Yeah. And there's only a certain amount of time you can say our name's X, our name's Y, and it gets to a point where it's like, are you not trying, or are we not clear enough? Because it's happening frequently is what we're finding, I think. Wow.
But I think also with that, what you were saying, if you're surrounded in a field of people that don't exactly have the same morals as you, we're quite lucky that we are surrounded by a lot of people that do have the same morals, but possibly some people have a little bit more funding than we've got at the minute because we're very new. So when we are asked to go to events and stuff, they're like, okay, how much are you getting paid for this? As Sophie was saying earlier. And we're like, we're not getting paid. Are you getting paid? Are we getting paid? What's happening? So I think that's been a big struggle of trying to balance the time and our expenses, because if we do all this voluntarily, we put a lot of time and effort in, and it's hard to balance that sometimes and being asked to go to these incredible events and support incredible people.
And that comes down to I do have to credit my 9-to-5 job, because they are absolutely brilliant. I think CPD days are very important, and being able to go out and do that, and professional development, business owners or not, the things that we get up to develop us as people.
Yeah, 100%.
And the business as part of being entrepreneur, obviously, but furthering yourself as an entrepreneur will naturally further your business, and I think that's important.
That's a very good point. I think very few businesses recognise the value of things that are a little bit more left field to following this course because we've got a client that needs you to know this subject. And working in an environment that's very supportive and conducive is really good.
Definitely.
I think one of the things I wanted to ask was, you've probably experienced times where you've been stuck or overwhelmed, or once or twice maybe.
Once or twice a day.
Once or twice a day. Okay. So how do you cope? What's your coping mechanisms? How do you move forward past that barrier in order for you to keep going?
Yes, I think this is going to be something that's very unique to different people. So generally, I do get overwhelmed quite quickly, and I do have a lot of thoughts in my head a lot of the time. So generally, I go to Jenny, Shopcora. I do talk to you a lot about things. I find that speaking to people about things, even if they can't understand the context, laying it out on a table in front of me and putting them all down makes me realise that actually it's a lot easier than what I'm actually worrying about. So I think it's putting things, for my personal side anyway, it's putting things into perspective, to worry about the things I do need to worry about and to not worry about the things that I can't control yet. If that makes sense.
Sometimes with that, you just need another voice to say, okay, that's actually an easy fix. You're too overwhelmed that you haven't thought of the different way to look at it. And we're quite good with each other. If we're overwhelmed, we'll talk to each other and they say, hold on, have you thought of this other thing? Or maybe don't need to worry about that. And I think that's very important. If you do feel overwhelmed, to as Sophie said, talk to people and really just get it off your chest, because the saying, one problem shared is another problem halved. I think that's very important.
So two people have to worry about it.
Sometimes both our problem.
Well,
sometimes
if I'm going to worry about it, you can worry about it too.
Very, very wise words. I think you've got to have somebody to talk to, and I think coming back to journaling, actually writing it down. But I think more importantly is taking the context of the problem somewhere else. So if you look at it, if you're let's say your problem is at this level here, and you're viewing it from the same level, and it's difficult, it's really hard. But all of a sudden, if you change your perspective and you look at it from here, you think, well, it's not so bad.
One thing I do like to do is look back on things I did worry about 6 months ago and be like, oh my goodness. Why was I worrying about that at the time?
And then the more times that happens, it's like, well, we've been there before. The sun will rise tomorrow. It's going to be fine. We'll figure out something.
Most of the times, actually, we worry about somebody and we go talk to them and they're like, no, I sorted it, we're fine. And then it's like, well, I was worrying for you of what you were going to do.
Worrying for you. But I think we also, nature in itself, cyber and tech means you're a lot of computer screens. And the cyberspace could be a lovely place. It can also be a very unkind place. So actually getting yourself away from that space and making sure you have a hobby outside. So whether that be you run, you like knitting, you read books that aren't cyber based, it's very important to make sure you have that, to be able to take that step back, to reset, to come away from technology, because it's everywhere these days, so we can't get away from it. But that step back and like the rebalance of all your hormones and everything in between that will play a massive part in this, to then come back and relook at the problem, it works for me every time.
Spot on, absolutely, totally agree with that. It's very wise words. You've got to, that thing about having multiple things, it's like a car with a single wheel is not going to be as effective. You need that suspension, you need the four wheels, you need other things going on in your life So if this one area here isn't doing so well, it's overwhelming, you've still got the others. You
Yeah.
can still go do whatever you do,
Yeah, sometimes it's just nice to talk to people who don't have skin in the game.
Yeah.
And you just have a different chat and talk about something else, because most of the time if you are running your own business, that's all you think about every day.
Yeah.
It's most of your conversations. So it's sometimes quite nice to go have a different conversation.
Yeah.
Listen to somebody else's problems for a change.
Absolutely.
Can be quite nice.
I think obviously you're in a fortunate position that you've got each other.
Yeah.
But life as an entrepreneur can be quite lonely, and sharing those problems and having those relationships outside is just as important to remain
Very.
Definitely.
grounded.
But if you do entrepreneur with a friend, certainly keep your friendship separate.
Yes.
It's something that we've learned. I mean, we no longer live together. We were going to, ironically,
Yeah.
which would, but it's kind of making sure you have that separate parts of your life. So when I go to Jenny, I don't want to be like, so Cyber Women.
Yeah.
And it wants to be a good mix of, actually, how's your day been? Apart from work, like, keep
That's why
that trust, keep that honesty side as
That's
well.
why we do try to do those days. So we're like, okay, we're going to do something fun as friends and not talk about Cyber Women at all.
Yeah.
I think they're very important to have, because if we always met up and always talked about that, we would just be business partners at the end of the day.
Yeah, and we
We'd lose
built
it.
our business on friendship. And
Yeah.
it's why it works so well. Our bond between us and the kind of diversity and bringing together we have as directors, that they've got two people they could speak to that are very different, very similar in so many different ways. I think that grounds you, really.
Yeah, absolutely.
And losing that would mean, well, we do know it's a risk if we never lost our friendship, the business,
Yeah.
where that would sit. So it's a fine line to run, but if you run it well, it works beautifully.
It's interesting, but you talk about friendship. I mean, people do business with people they like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
People get into business with people they like to get into business with. It may not necessarily be as deep as your friendship, which I hope prospers and continues.
Thank you.
But I think that trust is really important.
100%.
And I think people, if you can convey that to a customer or to anybody else, and they get that feeling that, yeah, you know what, they really genuinely want to do this. And if I was a student and I was coming to you, I genuinely feel I'd notice your infectious enthusiasm for the whole thing, and I'd think, oh yeah, look, I can vibe with this,
Yeah.
I feel good here, and I think that kind of dynamic, that trust really helps so much, and that friendship comes through. You've got to continue to do that at work as well. It depends on your style of management. Some leaders, some managers, they like to be a little bit aloof, because they don't want to get too close, too familiar, and they feel, because if they do, then they can't give the hard, firm messages. Whereas others are actually fine doing both. You can be really reasonable and very fair, but at the same time be very firm when you need to. And I think people respect that as well. So it depends a lot on where your journey is as an entrepreneur, where you are in your own development, as a person, I suppose, as well, right? As a leader as well as a person. Where are you on that journey? What can you deal with? And what kind of relationships can you build, and what sort of trust can you convey?
Definitely.
Yeah.
So thank you so far. I've just got one final question for you all. But so what would you say is the one key piece of advice you'd give to anybody, no matter whether they are just coming out of, whether they're young or old, from any walk of life, when they're just about to start off on their entrepreneurial journey? What's that one piece of advice?
I would say everybody is very different and everybody wants to do things very differently. So if you've heard if you've read all the books, if you listened to all the podcasts about advice, they could do it differently than how you would want to do it, and it doesn't mean you won't be successful. So try it your way and take that advice, but try it your way and do it how you want to do it. And I think if you're authentic and you keep to yourself, you will be successful. Don't try and be somebody you're not.
I think the hardest lesson I had to learn was not everyone's going to like you.
Yeah.
And that can feel gutting, but it's the truth. People aren't going to like you. They might not like what you're up to. They might not like your ethos and their ethics because it's different to theirs. And that's a part of life. Don't let it stop you from starting just because one person has something to say when there's going to be 500 other people that have completely the opposite opinion and will support you the whole way through. So yeah, see the bigger picture and support yourself, I think, would be my advice.
Excellent. I think seeing the bigger picture, the vision is really important. So you've got to have that compelling why. I think you've got to fulfill a need that exists out there. That's really important. I think you've got to be truthful to yourself and to others. You've got to be the authentic version, as you put it earlier on. You've got to be content with the level of progress you're making. You've got to be kind to yourself. You can't be unreasonable and demand things, because you'll burn out. You have problems, other sorts of issues, perhaps family or relationships, all kinds of other things can then be affected. So you've got to make sure you're content with your rate of progress. You've got to be humble to be able to listen and genuinely take on the feedback people give you, and yourself. You've got to have those conversations with yourself, whether it's journaling or whatever it is. And then you've got to be, I think overall, the whole thing that's going to come out is that trust. You've got to build that level of trust with your customers and across your team. And that really does, I think once you've got those kind of things right, you've fulfilled a need, you've got all of these other good things, then you will walk forwards, you'll be successful in what you're doing. I think that's really important to have that.
Yeah, I think sorry.
I was just going to say, it's really fun.
Yeah, I was going to say that.
Yeah, have fun.
Don't
Yeah,
forget to have fun with it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Good
you've got to
idea.
enjoy it.
It's such
Enjoy
good
it.
fun.
Yeah,
Yeah.
enjoy the ups and the downs of everything.
We've met so many cool people. We have so
Yeah.
many cool opportunities.
And don't be afraid to say yes to things, or no if you need to. But if you say yes to all the incredible opportunities that come your way, you will have so much fun.
Yeah.
You'll meet so many cool people.
I guess I don't know what type of fun it is, but yeah, I guess
I mean, I personally enjoyed
different
it.
levels of fun, right? But no, you're quite right. You've got to enjoy it. It can be a blast, when you've got friends and you're working with people and you enjoy it. It's a nice team. You're enjoying the work. You're not killing yourself doing it. You've got that balance where you're doing the other things in your life. I think that's brilliant. Isn't that just great?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's very good.
Thank you for all this wealth of feedback. I think it's like furthering on the trust conversation. I also have trust in yourself as well.
Yeah.
Is extremely important.
Absolutely.
And just take a risk. I
Yeah,
think
just
so
go
many
for
people talk about it or just think about doing something, and yet it's just that small step. Just take that small step, and then small steps each day turn into this big step.
Mm-hmm.
The worst someone can ever say is no.
Yeah,
Is that how you know it?
absolutely.
True. And
Yes,
I
I
think
agree.
sometimes from the inside you think everything's just going wrong and you're failing as well. But actually, when you step back and you look, think, wow, I've come all this. The steps you're talking about come all this way. Wow, that's progress. It's still progress.
Yeah.
Be kind.
Definitely.
Yeah, don't let people judge you as well. If you are feeling they're like, oh, you're going nowhere, keep going. Don't listen to what other people are saying if they're not being supportive.
Perspective is very important.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you, Jenny. Thank you,
Thank
Sophie.
you.
Thank you, Pal.
Thank
It's been a
you.
real pleasure.
Yeah.
And thank you very much, everyone, for watching and listening to another episode of Unexpected Perspectives. And see you all next time. Thank you.